Here's what you do. When that kid shows up, Dad's going to be doing a few chores around the house.
Huh?
It doesn't matter the chore. What's important is that it requires the use of a 60cc gas-powered chainsaw and possibly a mask.
I think it's showtime.
He's here. Dad, I want you to meet...
All right, let her rip.
What's that, honey? Hi, Snake. Great to meet you. But wait, where are you going?
There's no problem a little horsepower can't solve. Northern Tool and Equipment.
Ranger Station, Ranger speaking.
Yeah, hi. I'd like to report a bear sighting.
Location.
My backyard.
Oh, your backyard. Try telling a bear that.
I did, and this bear talked back.
Talking bear, that's rich.
No, wait, it was Smokey Bear.
Smokey. Why didn't you say so?
I did say so.
Continue.
I was burning yard waste.
No, boy.
He told me to burn legally and responsibly, and to remember that if it's too hot to touch, it's too hot to leave.
And as always, he's right. You know, 9 out of 10 wildfires are caused by humans. That means 9 out of 10 wildfires can be prevented.
Yeah, I know that now.
Thanks to me.
Actually, thanks to Smokey.
As usual, the talking bear gets all the credit. Get your Smokey on. Always burn responsibly and contact your local fire department for open burning regulations. Because 9 out of 10 wildfires can be prevented. Brought to you by Smokey Bear, the U.S. Forest Service, your state forester, and the Ad Council. Learn more at smokeybear.com.
Only you can prevent wildfires.
Welcome back to After Hours AM, the Criminal Code. I'm your host, Joel Sturgis, right along with me.
Eric Olson and
Dr. Clarissa Cole.
So after the attacks just on this train station by this cult that no one wanted to take seriously, did the government all of a sudden turn around and say, whoa, we got a problem here?
Oh, yeah. I mean, luckily most of the people, that 12 people did pass away, but by midday, like most of the patients were actually, discharged from the hospital. They suffered vision problems, but, some were in for a couple of weeks because they suffered nerve problems too, like the shaking and all of that. But it was not long. Like somebody sort of tipped off the government the day that this attack occurred. So they knew who they were looking for. So it didn't take them long to round them up. So they rounded up the 6 members essentially that were primarily responsible for those attacks, and I'm going to get his name wrong, Yasuhara, the leader. So they rounded them up. They were all put in prison. They were tried, and they were sentenced to death. All of them were sentenced to death. And in Japan, this might interest some of you. When you're on death row in Japan, they don't tell you when you are going to be executed.
Oh,
they don't tell anyone.
Oh.
Yeah, they don't tell anyone. It's very, very stringently controlled that the inmates don't know, their families don't know, the victims' families don't know. Just one day they come and get you from your cell, and then it's over.
Wow. So wow.
I like that.
Yeah.
Psychological terror.
Yeah, exactly. Every day you don't know if they're actually taking you to get your meds or to dinner or if they're going to kill you.
Oh, wow. There is a certain poetic justice there because these people on the subway had no idea that was their last day.
Exactly. And that's what people too don't realize is that even after the physical recovery, so many of those victims had terrible PTSD.
Yeah.
Of course.
For many years after that. And you think of all the panic, because especially the last attack when they were kind of caught, I guess, in a longer section before the next stop. Sure. And they're opening windows in this tunnel and people are kind of trampling each other to get out. It was absolute mayhem.
Carnage is what it was. And so, but it begs the bigger question. I mean, I shouldn't say bigger question, but the next question, what draws people to these violent cults? What's the deal, Clarissa?
Yeah, it's there was one sort of commonality between all the ones that carried out, that actually, carried the sarin onto the train, and most of the members too. The average age was in the mid to late 20s and to early 30s and male. So that was when I look at that, because Shoko Asahara was older. He was not that age. He was older, and you're not seeing like super young people, but you're not seeing people that are established in their 40s as much. There were some, but you're not seeing that. So he's really looking for a certain subset, and I think for them, especially, we have to think that the culture is a bit different. But what's interesting? That's starting to happen in the U.S. as well. You're noticing that group.
Right.
We've talked about it on the show before.
Yeah,
the disenfranchised man from age 23, 24 to 35, still living at home with mom and dad, feeling like they can't make a difference, they can't get ahead. That's exactly what was happening in Japan at this time.
so it's almost a mirror image.
It's a mirror image of what was happening there. They feel like they have, some opportunities, but not enough, that they'll never get ahead, that people will never recognize their uniqueness, their specialness. Everybody wants that in life. But that age group, especially in Japan, they felt like they didn't have any way to really express themselves. And it's happening here. So we're setting up, just so you know, we're setting up for that sort of thing.
How does it get?
Well, we're seeing some of it. It's taking effect.
How does it get diffused though? How do we stop that ball from rolling so much? What would be the society's, generally speaking, how do we stop it?
That's a great question, because there are so many things that feed into it. Like we have to give them opportunities that are as attractive as this cult was. And this cult was very, kind of enigmatic, mysterious, but also very exciting. Yeah. They had plans and missions and kind of covert things to do. You have to make it sort of exciting. I mean, like, basically it's like saying, okay, you can run this militia, or you could work part-time at Home Depot. Which do you want to do?
No, that's true. That's true. It's kind of like Fight Club.
It exactly like that. So like they want, and the other thing, I think the biggest part is that most of these men felt separate from everyone else around them. And I think we're doing that to men now too, especially white men, right? That they don't feel like they're part of anything bigger except these hate groups that are reaching out to them.
Yeah, and there's a lot of rhetoric.
Yeah.
You don't have to look too far to see the rhetoric. And I mean, most of us, especially, I'm 44 years old, you kind of see right through that. And you also kind of pick up on the dog whistle phrases that they use.
Oh, sure. It's all the same. It doesn't matter what culture it is. It's all the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Like a dog whistle for anyone that's listening to what? You'll hear a speaker and they use a certain phrase that only means something to that group of people.
Correct.
That's a dog whistle phrase. It's speaking to them directly without speaking to them directly.
Right. It's used in pretty much every cult, every gang, white supremacist groups. It was used during the Black Panther movement. It was, and not that any of them necessarily started out bad. Like, because that's the thing. People are like, oh my God, why would they join a cult? They're evil. It didn't start out that way. They
never do.
It started off the same way that anything does, and we talk about it over here. It's nationalism. It's being proud of where you're from. Yeah, that's how it starts.
The alt-right.
Yes, correct.
Yeah.
Same thing. Exact same thing. And they're building up to something exciting. They keep talking about taking your power back because they feel stripped of their power. But a big reason they feel stripped of their power is because they have no community to relate to. Everybody's telling them how bad they are.
Well, they're incels.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes. Do you want to talk about what incels are for the people out there that don't know?
Well, sure. Incels, which is absolutely fits with this age range and this mindset, are it's a acronym. It's a contraction of involuntary celibates. So what it really means is women don't like them. Now, no, really, I mean, truly, that's what it means. And so
depends on the women, though. I've seen some redneck girls. Okay, go ahead.
Instead of trying to figure out why they are unappealing to women, it reminds me. I mean, none of this is a joke, but I mean, it reminds me of the Dead End Gang. Remember, I don't know if you've seen because they're so old now. They were so old when I was a kid, but. Remember the He-Man Woman Haters Club?
I do.
But these are kids.
Rascals. Yeah.
These are little rascals. That's what it was. Yeah. So these are little kids, though. In there, we're talking about adults here
Yeah.
who have essentially have formed a He-Man woman haters club.
A violent one, yes,
and it's potentially violent. Well, it was violent to hire. What was the woman who was killed at the Charlottesville gathering?
Yeah, that's true.
Heather Heyer, absolutely.
So and many others were injured in that attack. So that is absolutely emblematic, of that. So the incels are involuntary celibates, and it's not that you happen to be celibate or that women, you're not hitting it off with women. It's what do you do about it? That's the question. That's the key. And literally, they essentially reject all that is feminine, and you get into this absolute male, dominant supremacy. I mean, if you remember at the time, some of these people, some of the responses to that poor woman being run over with a car for no reason other than the simple fact that she was protesting this gathering of white supremacists, vocal white supremacists, and anti-Semitic, just anti-anything that wasn't them. She was killed for that. So what did people say? Oh, well, she didn't count anyway because she hadn't bred. I mean, what millennium are we talking about?
Well, yeah, who's their leader? I mean, there has to be a leader moving for the movement in this country, and
I would say Gavin McInnes was a big part of it.
Yeah,
I'm willing to point him out.
See the Proud Boys,
the Proud Boys leader that has since quote unquote stepped down. Yeah, dude, it's not something you just step down from. Okay, you started a violent movement. You are going to forever be the figurehead of that in some way or another. But he was a big, push behind that, and there were other people that are stepping in to take his place, of course. But yeah, there's a lot of prominent people. I could name who I think the supreme leader is, but I'm not going to, because I don't want Secret Service agents showing up. But anyway, I think that there's a big sort of push toward misogyny, and it not only being acceptable, but it being preferred.
Yeah. It's historically mandated, that kind of thing. They're just looking. It reminds me, and we've talked about this and looked into this too. It reminds me a lot of all of some of the extreme myth making that went into the Nazi era.
Correct. Yeah. Sure.
It's revisionist history.
Right, and it's like, and you think about how eager at that time that all Germans, a lot of them were to just belong to something, because they felt that their country was just not, it wasn't flourishing at the time. And when your country isn't flourishing, and when your group, when your cohort, I guess, is not flourishing, you're looking for something to latch onto. And unfortunately, the first thing that comes out of the woodwork a lot of times are groups like this that are preying on that.
But doesn't it really speak to a larger societal breakdown?
Oh, yeah.
Yes. I mean, they weren't born this way. I mean, they learned it, right? And there's got to be a real underlying problem where you have a whole generation of, I shouldn't say generation, that's too wide of a brush, but a whole group of these people that are feeling this way. Does anyone ever stop and ask them, why do you feel this way? And maybe try to work with them in a society level so they do feel included?
I haven't really seen that yet. And I think a big part of the real problem is that people from that generation now, especially white men, again, from like the 23-year-old to 35-year-old age group, they are paying for the sins of their forefathers. They really are. Like people look back at the, 1900s, 1920s, 1950s, 1970s culture, and we're putting all of that on a kid who's 24.
And that's not fair.
Who might maybe says something a little bit misogynist or a little bit insensitive, but he is also informed by that same culture. You have to remember that they can't just learn a whole new way of behaving overnight.
If you tell them they're bad, for instance, they're going to be bad. Exactly, if you tell them there's no value to you, you're going to eventually believe there's no value to you. and you're going to amass with other people that feel the same way. That there's no value to them, and everyone wants to be valued.
And it's not up to, like, that's the thing. It's not up to the quote unquote adversary. Like for incels, the adversary in some ways is women, right? I mean, women can be better about how they behave when misogyny